Welcome, members of the chapter. This is Sprues and Studs, and we still have more holdovers from the past year to take a look at. So this Blood Angels Legion Praetor in Tartaros Terminator armor was released late last year, so I didn't get a chance to review it, but so they say it's better late than never. So without further ado, let's dive into this review. Now, first and foremost, you probably are asking me, why is this guy in pieces? And the only reason why this guy is in pieces, because this is how I pulled him out from the packaging. As you know, with all of my reviews, I am brutally honest about how things come. So regardless, sitting atop the armor of this action figure is a golden iron halo that unfortunately lacks any sort of shading with it. I also believe that JoyToy actually changed the plastic from a hard plastic to a softer type because you can actually bend the tips of the halo. In previous ones, you were not able to do this. The helmet area has a good amount of shading on the edges of the armor, but unfortunately lacks shading that is much needed in the vent areas. Thankfully, the lenses retain their metallic features, although the green that is used is very dark. Now this figure comes with a very Blood Angels-esque bare head. You can see the highly defined, chiseled, manly cheeks through the usage of sculpting, as well as the shading in this area. The eyes are actually nicely screened on, with this little glint that is found in the eye, which gives it more a lifelike feel. However, for some reason, I feel like the eyes are a little bit too big and thus has this piercing stare about it. I also like the golden locks of hair that has some nice highlights on it as well. The right pauldron has a screened 9th Legion symbol on it with ornate vines that are surrounding the 9, which I really like. I'm actually surprised that JoyToy decided to use screening instead of attaching the Roman numeral 9, because this adds extra dimension to the figure. Thankfully, the same cannot be said of the other pauldron, which is a good thing, because this one sports a raised winged black blood tier with highlights, and I really like this area a lot. Seasoning was added to the forearm of this armor through the usage of this golden blood tier with black wings. The word featuring the Blood Angels homeworld is etched into the plastic. Then finally, the vine-like patterning serves to give the same Blood Angels aesthetic that is found on the Crimson Paladins. However, unlike the Crimson Paladins, apparently this Praetor has gotten lazy and did not bother doing any sit-ups or any abdominal muscle training because he has a loosely defined 4-pack here, and this is an example of the manly abs that the Crimson Paladin has. It would appear that the waist area has taken some influence from the Ultramarines because of this tabard area. Looks like it is made of strips of leather, well, plastic IRL, but I do like the usage of golden studs and the outlining that gives this black area more dimension. I'm also surprised that the belt buckle of this Praetor is the plainest red and gold area. I would think that since this action figure is a Praetor, that they would have put something more grandiose on it. So the upper thigh of this area doesn't really have that much by the way of designs, which stands in contrast to the Crimson Paladins that we just reviewed. I suppose the spice starts in the knee area of this action figure with the usage of more winged blood tiers. I do like the vine-like designs that stand prominently in front of the figure, as well as on the sides. However, I'm not too sure with the GW choice in designs because I feel almost as if the Crimson Paladin designs should have been translated to the Praetors. Now, the back of the action figure sports a Tartaros power plant, which is more integrated in the armor than the Cataphracti armor. This power plant looks like it was slapped onto the back of it. The biggest area to focus on is obviously the cape. I find the usage of the white with the light blue shading to be very unique and not found on a lot of Marines that I have reviewed. This gives the cape a softer kind of look and tone. What also gives this highly texturized area more character is this raised gold line here near the bottom of the cape. Also, the cape is attached onto the body through different means in that they use these plastic loops right here that hook onto the arm socket, which may be the first time we've seen this used. So when I look at this Stormbolter, I get the feeling that this is very close to the modern day counterpart that is seen on the Leviathan Primaris Terminators. And this is a side-by-side look of the aforementioned modern day Stormbolter on my right hand side. And this does not look as archaic as the bolters that are found with the Thousand Suns Terminators. I like the fantastic usage of color with the gold gunmetal as well as the black. The placement of this winged skull gives this weapon an added piece of flair. However, what I do find weird about this weapon is that if you look, there appears to be like this rust like paint in the recesses. I'm not sure if JoyToy did this purposely or this was some sort of painting accident. Just like the Crimson Paladin's power sword that I'm holding in my right hand, the Praetor's power sword features the brilliant usage of color. How GW painted the gunmetal, gold, metallic red, and black is perfectly balanced. Through the use of these colors, each subsection on the sword is clearly defined, with the gunmetal of the blade and the gold of the hilt. The color grading on the blade is interesting is that it is darker on the back of the blade and migrates to a lighter silver towards the blade edge, where most power swords have the darker color at the base of the blade and then turns lighter at the tip. Okay, with the figure that was shipped to me like this, I will use this opportunity to show you some internals that we do not typically see. Now, I'm going to say that I think that JoyToy upgraded this so-called region where the chest here attaches to the torso. I think in other action figures, this is a big black plastic ball joint, but they clearly replaced it with a metal piece here. Now, my experience with bonding metal to plastic is not very good with super glue, in that things that are bound with super glue that are like this tend to fall apart as it did in this instance. So perhaps this upgrade may be considered a downgrade. I'm not too sure. And also with this elbow piece that fell apart, find that this nubbin that is attached to the main body is too shallow, which is likely why this area fell off. So now let's briefly talk about movement, and there's two areas that have inhibition of movement, but is actually the same area. So you are not able to rotate the arm area about this axis right here because of the hoses that attach the top of the tricep to the forearm area, and I will demonstrate right now this restriction. So as you can see, the hose wraps around and prevents this thing from spinning 360 degrees. You can rotate around this area, and it also stops rotating due to this hose. Size comparison time. Let's compare this Praetor to a Crimson Paladin. So the Praetor is just slightly taller than the Crimson Paladin, as referenced with this helmet region right here and where the lenses sit. Here is an example of a firstborn Terminator. Clearly the Legion Praetor does stand quite a bit taller than this short little guy here. And finally, adding this Primaris Terminator over here to the mix, this guy stands just a little bit taller than the Praetor here. And now it is time to wrap this review up. This is kind of a personal preference, but I'm not too much of a fan of the Tartaros Terminator suits. I don't know, there's something about the aesthetic that just doesn't seem quite right to me. I'm more of a Cataphracti Terminator armor fan. And just a couple notes about this action figure. So obviously you saw during the action figure review that a few of the parts came undone on this action figure, and as I was posing during the B-reel, unfortunately the elbow joint itself kind of fell off, which is again fairly irritating that all of this is happening with this action figure. I'm not too sure what is going on with the QC, but in my case, this all provides more content for you to see because I can just break down the Terminator more so you can see, well, more of the internals at a later time. If you are compelled to get this action figure, please click in the link in the description below, or you will be brought to David Toys. They are an excellent, reputable vendor of JoyToy action figures, and I cannot recommend them enough. And before you check out, do not forget to use the code SNS to receive 12% off of your purchase. So members of the chapter, thank you so much for watching this action figure review. Thank you so much for your likes, subscribes, and comments. I'm sure that this 2025 year is going to be an awesome one, full of more excellent action figures, and I hope to see you all in the next one.